Hello, welcome to Solar. I'm Stefan Arouet and I work in the design office. Today we are going to talk about roof solar systems and flat roofs. Two types of videos are available online. One is aimed at photovoltaic installers where we will cover the layout and installation of the modules. We will assume that the rails have already been welded. And today we are going to see how to weld our rails. So these are intended for waterproofers. First, we will discuss the layout. Feel free to visit our website to download the technical reports. You may already notice that we are on V4, so version 4 of the roof solar bitumen and PVC V3. This is with our partner EcoAxter. With our partner Allsim, formerly Firestone, we are at V1. Also on our website, you will find the installation manuals. These two are regularly updated. Before we delve into the important aspects of layout and the crucial process of welding, I will first introduce and explain the specific parts that are of particular concern to you, especially in terms of ensuring optimal waterproofing, which primarily involves the critical welds themselves. It doesn't matter. In the waterproofing system, you will always find the 60-centimeter rail here fitted with these TPO membranes, fitted with its roof solar bitumen membrane with flakes. And here the 60-centimeter rail fitted with PVC membranes. And please do not forget that with both PVC and TPO roofing systems, we specifically provide you with durable PVC patches and robust TPO patches. These essential patches should always be carefully placed at the very ends of the rails to effectively prevent any potential puncturing or damage that could occur between the roofing membrane and the underlying rail structure. Before you start marking out, you'll have a bit of handling to do, meaning you'll need to store the rails on the flat roof. What I recommend is to place them along the parapet walls, because there is an area where it is forbidden to install our rails. That's all around the parapets and within a distance of 1 meter from the parapet. You'll also find these same distance requirements around the skylight. Dome Solar provides you with a plan featuring cumulative measurements, meaning there is a 0 point at certain locations and a measurement at each end of the rail. In general, for marking out, I ask to have 4 people. And the following tools: a 50 or 60 meter tape measure, which you'll primarily use to accurately measure your roof, so it could be from one gutter to another, it could be between the ridge cap and the edge of the gutter. You might, how should I say, check your measurements in relation to the skylight, to the smoke vents. Also, what's even better is a chalk line with red ochre, as it allows the markings to remain visible from one day to the next. You never know, at night the humidity could erase it if you use blue chalk line. Make absolutely certain that you have chalk or a suitable pastel to write clearly on the bitumen surface, specifically a vibrant red pastel, or alternatively specialized markers designed for use on PVC and TPO materials. Of course, whether for marking or welding, the membrane needs to be clean. So for applying bitumen, you absolutely need an outdoor temperature that is above 2 degrees Celsius, along with completely dry weather conditions and a thoroughly clean surface area. For PVC, it can happen that it's soaked PVC or TPO, and of course you'll need to remove any excess water. You might even need to clean it thoroughly with plenty of water. And then if that's still not enough, you'll have to apply a product, EcoArmor plant, at the locations of the welds and rails. You'll also find cleaning is necessary on the TPO membrane. And on the TPO membrane, in practice, you are required to apply a product, Firestone's Splice Wash, at the location of the rails. So same thing, when you apply the product, you have to wait for it to dry before welding. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are measurements to check before starting. Why 4 people? Well, actually, it depends on the size of your project and the dimensions of your generator. But if you already have a distance of more than 15 meters from the first rail column to the last rail column, often just to hold your measuring tape, you need 2 people. For marking, you'll also need 2 people and 1 in the middle of the marking to keep your chalk line pressed against the ground. And 1 person will read the cumulative measurements and another will also mark on the ground. The very first and most important thing to do is to carefully check the precise measurement in direct relation to the curb, ensuring accuracy, and you will mark your 0 point. There's a measurement that always comes up on our plans. It's the famous 1040 measurement. In fact, it's the 2 rails that are located under your module. These are measurements you need to check regularly when you're marking out. It's important to regularly check that both of your measurements are at 1040. Of course, the intermediate measurements between 2 1040 measurements, that is between 2 modules. But for you, the waterproofers, that's not your concern. Since you won't be handling the installation of the modules, there are still measurements to be respected, and these will change depending on the size of the module. So a measurement that comes up all the time on every plan is 1040. The first thing we're going to do in our marking out is the outline of a zone. We're not going to mark out the entire generator according to its size. If it's over 100 square meters, if it's over 300 square meters, we'll do it zone by zone. Keep in mind that when you're marking with 4 people for something weighing around 50 kilograms, it takes at least 2.5 hours. So generally we mark out, and what's good is that we start welding right away. We're going to draw a first parallel line on the longest side of the parapets. You should be at least 1 meter away from your parapet. Here, for example, we're about 1.13 meters away. So you're going to take this first parallel, your 0 point, and we're going to go all the way around your generator, your area. And you stop right at the very last one, the final row of rails, meaning that you will have an outer measurement, the first one you carefully marked in direct relation to the parapet, and the very last one, which is actually positioned inside your generator, providing a comprehensive and accurate measurement. So when you're marking with your chalk line, you need to take much larger measurements. Here is your generator. If we look at our measurement at 9.14 meters, that's the last line you drew. And you also have your rail, which is actually about 9.80 meters. Your generator is 9.80 meters. So don't hesitate when marking with the chalk line to go much further than the indicated measurements. It will help you when installing the rails. So of course, when we start marking, we have a plan with the cumulative measurements, and on the roof, nothing has been marked yet. We start from our 0 point. And we draw our first parallel to the gutter. And we're going to use the 3-4-5 method, which means a first measurement between 0 and your parallel at 3 meters, a distance of 3 meters, and a second measurement from your 0 point, but perpendicular to your first marking. You will draw an arc with a radius of 4 meters. Next, you will actually check your diagonal from your 3 meter marking, your 3 meter point, and your 4 meter arc. So at the intersection, you will have your 5 meters. And now you can actually draw your perpendicular to your first line. You will do exactly the same on the opposite side, that is at 14.97 meters, a little further. You do between your 0 and your 14.97 meters, that's your last rail column. You mark your 3 meters in relation to your 14.97 meters. You draw your arc at 4 meters and your point at 14.97 meters. You check your diagonal between your 3-meter point and your 4-meter arc, and you draw your perpendicular. On your perpendiculars, you will make your mark at 9.14 meters. So that's your bottom rail. You still have 60 centimeters left when you install your rail. So you do it here on your first perpendicular, and you do it on your second one as well. Before continuing with the marking, what you can do is check your diagonals. You are going to meticulously check the precise distance, carefully measuring the space between the designated point located here, specifically at a reading of 9.14 meters, and your established reference, which is commonly referred to as the 0 point. You will check the other distance, so your first perpendicular at 9.14 meters, and the total distance is at exactly 14 meters. These two diagonals must be identical in length. If there is ever a difference of 2 or 3 centimeters, it means there is an error in your 3, 4, 5. If it's off by just a few millimeters, you can consider it good. So once you've checked your diagonals and they're identical, you draw your parallel line to your first line, which you made parallel to the curb. Next, you move on to the cumulative measurements. For example, it doesn't matter which lines, but here let's start along the curb. The first one at 1040 is your 0 point. That's your first rail column. Then comes the second rail column, and so on. With your plans and the cumulative measurements, you move forward. That's when you have one person at the 0 point, another at 14.97 meters, one person marking according to the cumulative measurements, and another reading the cumulative measurements on the plan. Here, for marking the cumulative measurements, it's better to have 4 people. And you do the same thing on the opposite side, using the same cumulative distances. Then, in the vertical direction, meaning along the rails, you just mark a point at one end of a rail. You don't mark both ends of the rail, just one end. And you do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Once you've marked everything, all that's left is to mark with the chalk line. For the chalk line, you can do it with 3 people, meaning one at the 0 point, another at the end at 14 meters, always taking a bit longer, and one person in the middle. We usually start vertically, so you'll have one person there. Make sure to take much more than 9.74 meters. Measure from rail to rail, from one rail end to the other, and don't hesitate to take a longer measurement. There's often someone in the middle who also presses down with the chalk line, stretches it, and above all, when you're marking, don't go beyond 15 meters. With the chalk line, you'll see that just a little bit of wind is enough to throw you off course. And of course, once you've done the vertical direction, you do the perpendiculars. And again, you need at least 3 people to mark the lines. Then once you've marked everything, you'll go back to the rails you've laid down, laid along the parapets. You'll need to bring them to each intersection of your markings. First, second column, and so on. For a project that's much larger than a 50 kilogram or even a 100 kilogram one, you might want to use a laser, or even, as has happened before, call in a surveyor who will set out points. But even then, you'll still need to do the marking. But at least you'll have all the points set. And if you have a surveyor or a laser, it's doable by just one person. Handling the rails in terms of time shouldn't be underestimated. For a 50 kilogram job, you need at least half an hour, even with 3 people. In the photo here, you can see the marking, and once you move forward with the marking, what's interesting is that you can start welding. There's one team doing the marking and another team welding. There are 2 types of welding, PVC and TPO. Both are welded with hot air. You can also use a semi-automatic machine to help, or otherwise it's done manually. And of course, for bitumen, it's done with a torch. For PVC and TPO, what you must not forget are the patches. When you receive the PVC or TPO rails, you will also typically receive corresponding patches. There are usually 2 patches provided per rail, and they are completely identical in their design and composition, regardless of whether the rail itself is made of PVC or TPO. Both the PVC and the TPO patches, as well as the rails, have precisely the same dimensions and specifications. 60 by 80. If you look at the screen, there's a specific way to place the patch. In the direction of the 80, the patch measures 60 by 80. When you weld your rail, you have the convenient option to carefully slide the patch into place after the welding process is complete. And always in the lengthwise direction of the 80, it must be centered in relation to the rail. It must not extend beyond the entire width of the rail, and above all, it is absolutely crucial that it must not encroach upon the delicate membranes that gently rest along the entire length of the rail. And of course, it should also be carefully placed on the opposing side as well. You will need to carefully weld it securely to the membrane. Either you can put it in once you've successfully welded your rail and then securely weld it to the membrane. Or else, since it's marked, you can just as easily place your rail and see where it lands. You can carefully place your second patch right here, and then you can securely weld them together before proceeding with the installation of your rails. If we meticulously examine it from this particular perspective, you will observe a noticeable overhang both here and also over here, which should always be perfectly aligned with the rail itself. Isa Chow. And you can do half and half. This is specifically designed to prevent the rail from puncturing the delicate membrane. As I was previously telling you, whether working on PVC or TPO materials, and utilizing either manual or semi-automatic welding techniques, it typically takes on average between 2 and 3 full minutes per rail, which comprehensively includes the application of the patch. The asphalt. Once you have traced on your bitumen membrane and placed your rails at the crossing points of your straight lines, to weld your rails, you will have to trace around the retaining strips. So you can either use a cat's tongue trowel or a red chalk line to mark. And you do several rails. Then once you have marked all around the rail, so all around your retaining strips, you blacken this area. And you do this for all the areas you have marked. For example, you do 8 of them, and then you go back to the first blackened area. It needs to be cool before you lay your rail. And then you weld each membrane that is securely joined to the main rail component onto the membrane. And you finish with the border all around. And on average, just like with PVC, it takes you 3 minutes. Once you have finished welding, the waterproofers have completed their work. And then it's on to the electricians, the module installers. And for that, there's another video that I encourage you to watch. Don't hesitate to visit our website to download all kinds of documents, whether it's certifications or installation manuals. If after watching you have any questions, feel free to send me your requests at the email address shown here, indicating the file number starting with F or E. And all that's left for me is to wish you a great start to your project and a good day. Thank you. Goodbye.